Are you a good waiter? Meaning that, what do you do when things don't happen as fast as they should? And I think when we ask that question, what we really are saying, if you're a believer, what do we do when God doesn't act as fast as we would like him to do? So my question again, are you a good waiter? Do you have patience? Do you have resilience? And really the question is, do you have faith? And when we look at waiting, especially when we're praying to God, is really an act of faith. So my question is, can you have faith in God while you wait for God to act? It could be something pressing, you could be praying, but the bottom line is, do you have faith when you're waiting for God to act? Today we're going to look at two people, a man and a woman, who show a great deal of faith. One got their healing immediately, and the other one had to wait. Let's see how they both react. Stay tuned for this week's lesson. Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. John W. Wilson III, bringing you the Sunday School lesson for this Sunday, June 20th, 2021. Thank you for joining me today. Our lesson comes from Matthew chapter 9. We'll begin at verse 18. We'll end at verse 26. The title of the lesson is Healing by Faith. Healing by Faith. But before we get into the lesson, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you find this lesson is beneficial to you. Share it with as many people as possible if you're blessed by this lesson. Only if you're blessed by this lesson. That's the catch. So let's get into our lesson. We're in the Gospel of Matthew. We're in chapter 9. Matthew records Jesus' ministry, and we are in his second year of his ministry. And the theme of Matthew is that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So it is part of the Synoptic Gospels. Synoptic Gospels are, they see the same thing, they tell the same story, just in a different way. They see it from a different point of view. Mark sees it a little bit different from Luke. Matthew sees it a little bit different from Mark. But the Synoptic Gospels, they share many of the same stories. We're in that, chapter 9. The setting is this. Jesus has just got through talking to thousands and thousands of people. He's still talking to them. And he's talking to them about fasting, what it means. They're questioning, well, how come your disciples are not fasting? The Pharisees do, and the disciples of John fast. Why aren't you fasting? So he answers that question there. So now he goes into our setting. When he's talking about that, our passage says, while he was saying these things, so while he was talking about fasting, he is interrupted by a ruler. Now the thing about this passage here, I said this is Synoptic Gospels. Mark chapter 5 has the same story. It's a little bit longer. And then you have Luke chapter 8 has the same story, and that is also longer than Matthew. Matthew gives a brief account. Mark gives the largest account, the most. I think, if I'm correct, Matthew is about 1/3 of Mark, and then it's about 1/2 of Luke. So Mark is going to give you the most information, followed by Luke, and then followed by Matthew. And you may ask yourself, why is that happening? Well, they're telling, remember I said the Synoptic Gospel, they're telling a story to emphasize a certain point. As we find out in this lesson here, Matthew's going to try to emphasize, or he's going to emphasize, faith. Okay? And so that's all he cares about. Some of the details that Mark has and that Luke has, he does not include because he's getting to the point, he's trying to illustrate it. And if he told every detail, it would detract from his readers about what he's trying to emphasize. So in this passage here, you may say, well, this teacher's not talking about that. He's not talking about. No, I'm going to stay true to this text here. I'm going to give a little fill in, but not much of all. I'm going to make sure that we are highlighting what Matthew is trying to talk about, not so much what Luke is and Mark. And when we come back to teach those one day, I will highlight what they have. So that's what we have. So let's get into this. As he was saying these things, he's talking about fasting with the disciples. The multitudes of people are surrounding him. Jesus is very popular. He has done miracle after miracle after miracle, and people are following him for various reasons. There are some who actually may believe in him, maybe as a prophet. They don't know him as the Son of God yet, but they believe in him. They have faith in him. And then the others are following him because they want a miracle. They have no intention of following him. They just have a need that they have to have met. And then you have another group, the Pharisees. They're jealous of him. They're haters of him. They're mad because he's teaching something that they're not teaching. They consider him to be a heretic. He's going against the grain. He's changing things. He's moving them out their status position. All right. He's messing with their fellowship. So there's three types of people here: those who will believe, those who come to get a need met, and then those who are haters. They're just not going to like Jesus no matter what he does. So we'll find out which are characters in the story, which category they fit in. While he was saying these things, behold, a ruler, that means somebody who's over people, somebody who has authority, somebody who has a position. If we were to look at Mark and Luke, it would tell us that he was a ruler of a synagogue. So he was a religious ruler. He maintained the day-to-day operations of the synagogue. He had authority, he had position, and he had power. So he was a man of position, a man of honor in the society. He was respected. A lot of people knew who he was. And this man had a need. He said, behold, all of a sudden, as they're talking, he shows up. A ruler came in and knelt before him. He came in there and humbled himself before Jesus. This man of position, man of power, man of status, religious leader, humbled himself before Jesus. That is a significant thing. It tells us a lot about him. One, he humbled himself, he honored Christ, and what it means is that he was desperate. Remember, he's from the synagogue. He's a Pharisee type. And so for him to kneel before Jesus meant that he's concerned about his daughter. We're going to find out that his daughter is very sick, and he says his daughter has died. And so he has tried every doctor. He has tried every prophet that was there, or so-called prophet that was there. He has talked to his religious leaders of that day. No one can save his daughter. The other synoptic gospels tells us, I believe it's Mark, tells us that his daughter was his only child. So this is all he has. Okay? And he's losing her. In fact, she's dying, or she's dead at this point. Probably means that she's about to die. She's at this point right here. And so he's desperate. And for him to kneel before Jesus is a desperate thing to do. That's how much he loves his daughter. That's how much he wants her to be healed. That's how much he has heard about Jesus. He's heard all the things about him. That's a display of faith. He's worshiping Jesus. Some people can say that. And also, he's making a clean break from his religious members or his friends or his peers in the synagogue. For him to kneel before Jesus will be considered heresy. Heresy. Remember, they were the haters of Jesus. They didn't like Jesus. They considered that Jesus was a false teacher. They didn't like the fact that Jesus could forgive sins or identify himself as God. They did not like that. They didn't like him ruffle the feathers. So this person, Mark and Luke, identify him as Jairus, makes a break away from the Jewish faith, from Judaism. And that's a big thing. So he's laying everything on the line. He is a desperate individual. Jesus is his last resort. Okay? His last and best. And sometimes we do the same thing. We get into a bind and we go to every place and every person out there, and then we come to Jesus last. When everything doesn't work or everything doesn't come as promised, we go to Jesus begging for help. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing. God has used that situation to bring him to himself, bring you to him. But for believers, okay, for an unbeliever, that may be what they normally do as a normal process. But for the believer, we know that we should go to Jesus first. We know what he can do. We know what he's done in our life. We should go to him first. So I'm going to give Jairus a pass because obviously he was a unbeliever. Now he's going through the process of believing, and God is using his sick daughter, his dead daughter, as a means to bring him to him. And we see that all the time. As I told you before, I'm in a hospital, I'm a chaplain, and I see a lot of sick people. And you may say, how does God get glory in suffering? Well, he can get glory in suffering, as that suffering can draw that individual to saving faith in Jesus Christ. That's how he gets glory. And so whatever you're going through, whatever it may be, don't take it for granted. God is bringing you to him. If you're saved, he wants a deeper relationship. He wants you to lean a little bit more. If you're not saved, what is he doing? He's bringing you to him so that you can experience salvation. That's what he's doing for this person right here. And he's using, sometimes God doesn't cause it, but he takes an unfortunate situation and he uses it for his good. And he says here, my daughter has just died. Okay? My daughter has just died. Come and lay hands on her and she will live. Look at his faith. Okay? The other synoptic gospels tells us that when he approached Jesus initially, the daughter was still alive, but she was dying. And in the midst of a conversation dealing with our second character, the lady that had an issue of blood, they come to him and said she has passed. And so that's a little bit different there, but we have a brief synopsis of what's going here. So we don't have those details, but we look at the other ones and we do. So my daughter has just died, and but come and lay your hands on her and she will live. Okay? And Jesus rose and followed him with his disciples. Okay? So Jesus responds to this person, and the disciples follow him. And this man displays a great deal of faith. He says, but come, she has died. Look, she said she's died, or she's dead, or near death, or however you want to interpret it, okay? But come, lay your hand on her, and she will live. Look how much faith he has, okay? This is the first incident, as you will see, when he raises her up. This is the first miracle recorded of Jesus raising somebody from the dead. The prophets have done it in the past. And so maybe he sees Jesus as a prophet, may not quite see him as Son of God yet, but he sees him as a prophet, knows that prophet, especially Elijah, who raised the widow's son, they can do that. But as far as in all the Gospels, this is the first instance where Jesus raises somebody from the dead. The next instance will be Lazarus. And these are foretellings to his own resurrection. Okay? All right, look what this happened. He rises, follows him with the disciple, and behold, that means look, all of a sudden, somebody interrupts Jesus going there. And so look at this man, Jairus. His daughter's dying, or she's dead, and he wants Jesus to heal her, but there's an interruption. Now my question to you is that if you're Jairus, how do you handle this interruption? If you're praying for something, a job, and something interrupts you, maybe an illness, or maybe a car accident, or maybe something unfortunate happens, how do you deal with waiting on God to answer your prayer, and there comes an interruption? You think God is en route to answer your prayer, something comes up and halts it, and now there's a delay. Can you have faith? Can you still trust God when he doesn't answer prayer as fast as you can, or when he allows interruptions to come into your life? Can he do that? I want to be this, but this happened. I want to go here, but that happened. or I was on my way, God was working in my life, things was going well, all of a sudden I got sick and I got delayed. All of a sudden I lost my job. All of a sudden I got a divorce. All of a sudden my relationship ended. All of a sudden drama came into my family. Can you handle it when there's an interruption? When now God seems like he's going to take forever to answer your prayer or your request, and it may seem like he may not answer it at all. So look what happened. Has an interruption. Remember, as a Christian, life is not going to be perfect. It's going to be full of trials and tribulations like we have here. It's going to be things that happen to you that not to your own fault. You had nothing to do with it. And in the midst of those things happening, you're going to have interruptions. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have good news. You're going to have bad news. You're going to have all this. That's how life is. Life is not perfect, and this is what teaches it. But in the midst of life not being perfect, there is a God that you can trust. There is a God that you can believe on. There's a God that you can place your faith in, and no matter what happens, no matter what setbacks there are, no matter what interruption you have in your life, guess what? God is still in control, and God still can answer your prayer. He still can do that. So look what happens here. And behold, a woman. Okay? Now, the Synoptic Gospels tells us that, he says, my daughter just died. That daughter is 12 years old. And the Synoptic Gospels, Mark and Luke, tell us that this woman had a discharge, or she was hemorrhaging, or she was bleeding off and on or repeatedly for 12 years. So right when this child was born, this lady's hemorrhaging began. Kind of ironic. I know there's some symmetry in there that's done on purpose. It's to bring these stories together, to see how God works, to let you know that this did not happen by happenstance. This is really God's providence. And behold, a woman had an issue of blood who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years, came up behind him and touched him. Now look at the comparisons here. You have Jairus was the ruler, high position, high status. And then you have this lady, we don't even get her name. Okay, in the other gospel, we don't even know her name. She's low status. She's an outcast because she has an issue of blood. She would be deemed unclean. She would only be able to hang around with other women who had the same issue of blood. She would not be allowed to worship. She would not be allowed to touch other people. She would not be allowed to assemble with other people. She was an outcast. She would not have a way of making a living somehow. So she was in poverty. She was hurting. And the other synoptics tell us that she had gone to physician after physician after physician. They knew they couldn't heal her, but they took her money anyway. Nobody could heal her. Okay? And so she has had a hard life. And so she's deemed unclean. And guess what? That child who is dead or dying, who's really dead at this time, is deemed unclean also. So what do we learn from both these? You got Jairus and we got this woman with an issue of blood. That's how she's identified. Guess what? Things happen to the wealthy and the poor the same way. Same time. Many people think if I was just wealthy, my life would be easier. Sometimes if you're wealthy, you die just as young as somebody who dies in poverty. It's all about God's will and God's choosing and what he wants to accomplish. I work in a hospital. I'm a chaplain. And guess what? I see people all the time. They're sick. The cancer affects the rich and the poor the same. Abuse or substance abuse affects the rich and the poor. If you think, and what I'm trying to say is this. You live in this world, your money is not going to protect you from the calamities of life, the trials of life. If you don't have any money, that's not going to protect you from the calamities or the trials of life either. It's not. Okay? Things happen. It rains on the just like it rains on the unjust. It rains on the poor just like it rains on the rich. It rains on the privileged just like it rains on the unprivileged. Okay? So here we have the rich and the poor in dire situations. One's daughter is dead and the other one has an illness that is taking the very life out of her. is draining every piece of energy that she has. It's making her feel sick and weak and frail. She's anemic all the time. So we got two extremities there, and we're going to see how Jesus handles them. Jesus is not a respecter of person. He doesn't go with Jairus because he's in some kind of position. He goes because of compassion of his heart. And he heals this lady, we're going to see, not because she's in poverty, because of his compassion. So Jesus does things out of his love and compassion for people, not based on what status they have in there. So that means whether you're rich or poor or in between, you can go to God in prayer, and guess what? He will hear your prayer and he'll answer your prayer. Okay? So here we have this. Okay? He said, and she goes this. Look at her faith. Okay? No matter who you are, you can have faith. Your money doesn't determine your faith. Your poverty doesn't determine your faith. And behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came upon him and touched the fringe of his garment. She touched the hem of his garment. She touched the tassel of his garment. I mean, what it is emphasizing is just a little piece of the garment. And the reason why she touched the garment, because remember, she was unclean. She couldn't touch his hand or anything. She was deemed unclean. But she had enough faith to say, although I don't touch his body or his flesh, if I just touch his garment, his hem, his tassel, the little piece of it, his garment, guess what? I will be healed. Look at that tremendous faith. Again, where did her faith come from? She had heard all what Jesus had done. She had heard testimonies or seen. Maybe she knew somebody that got healed, but she had heard the great works that he had done. She had heard his teachings. And she too had tried everything just like Jairus. And Jesus too was her last chance of living. And it brought her to faith. She had enough faith that this man, I heard all this about. He's a prophet of God. I heard his teaching. If I just touch him. Now, did she know he was the Son of God? No, that comes later, maybe. It comes later, because I want to tell you, when Jesus heals you physically, he's also, in the Bible, his goal is to heal you spiritually. Bring you into salvation. Bring you into saving faith. So when you see people getting healed, that is a prelude, or that's an introduction to the ultimate healing, which is your salvation. Jesus never healed just to leave you where you are. He always healed to bring you into faith in him, to bring you into saving faith. Okay? And these two individuals are exemplifying a tremendous amount of faith. I mean, do we have that type of faith today? No, I don't know if we do or not. I don't know. I don't think so. Some people do. I believe maybe in some parts of the country they do. Maybe where they don't have doctors, or maybe people who have gone through trials and tried everything, and maybe it brought them to a point where I'm going to put all my faith in Jesus. Maybe that's where it comes from, okay? Maybe the circumstances brings out our faith, okay? So, she said, if only I touch his garment, I will be made well. That's her faith. Jesus turned to her, seeing her, and Luke and Mark tells a little bit more of a description of it, but I'm just going to stay with the brief brevity of Matthew, because I think we're talking about faith. We're not talking about all the other stuff. Take heart, daughter. That's an affectionate. Remember, she's an outcast. She's used to be talking to bad, looked upon, or people turn the other way, or go across the street. And he says, take heart. Don't be afraid, because he said, who touched me? Who touched my garment? And she came to him trembling. And he says, don't be afraid. Take heart. Be comforted. Daughter, affectionate. Your faith has made you well. And she was healed instantly. She was healed instantly. The woman was made well. Wow. What kind of faith is that? Just to touch the garment. It's hard for us in this century to imagine that. Maybe live in America where we go to the doctor, we pray for the doctor. We don't say, if I only touch, and Jesus is not here, we don't say, if I only believe, but just amazing act of faith. And we can believe, I believe we can have that same type of faith too. Now, I don't want to say that we are prosperity people, meaning that God's going to heal me, God's going to heal me. I think as we look at Jesus, we ought to pray according to his will. Meaning that our ultimate prayer is, God, your will be done. That's an act of faith. That's a tremendous act of faith. It's one thing to say, God, heal me of my body, heal me of this cancer. I mean, that's natural, that's good, okay? I'm not saying don't do that, but it's another thing to say, God, let your will be done, even if it means you don't heal my cancer. I'm going to submit to you, well, I'm going to trust you that this is going to work out for your glory and for my benefit. Because when you're glorified, I receive a blessing. I am benefit. That's the ultimate act of faith. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow, because when you're sick or you're dying like this or you're sick like that, all you want to do is be healed. Okay? And all you want to do is, God, heal me, heal me, heal me. And you don't want to have to deal with the fact that it may not be what God's will is for your life. I see people in the hospital, they are fighting, and I commend them. And I'm pretty sure if I was in the same situation, I would do the same thing. I would want to live. And they fight and fight really to the very end, to maybe the last week or two of their life. Then they realized that, hey, I'm not going to make it. I was looking at something on an autopsy of this guy that used to play the Incredible Hulk. I forgot his name, Bill Bixby. And he fought to the very end. At the very end, he realized that I'm going to in fact die. And so my thing is that we need to pray for healing, but also understand we're praying that ultimately that God's will be done. Okay? That's an act of faith in its own there. Okay? And really God heals people, and there's some people he doesn't. But it all works together for its glory, and ultimately those who die and go to heaven are ultimately healed anyway. They're going to have a brand new body that's going to be coming their way pretty soon when Jesus returns. So let's look at this. All right, and so when Jesus came to the ruler's house, now at that interruption, okay, interruption. So understand there will be interruptions in life, okay. And what I admire about this thing, we don't see hear about Jairus getting ruffled. We don't hear him getting upset. We don't see him getting impatient. We don't see him trying to tell Jesus to hurry on. We don't even hear what he says. But this man is a humble man. His faith tells him that everything's going to be okay. His faith tells him that his daughter is going to be made alive again. And once you know that and your faith is rock set on Jesus, then you can be patient and you can handle interruptions. And I like the way Jesus handles interruptions. He doesn't get flustered. He doesn't say, hey, I'm busy, I got to go here. No, he takes time, and you don't see him being ruffled or any kind of way. Handles this case, then he goes on to this, then he continues what he hasn't done in a nice flow. That's how good our Savior is. So, all right. And when Jesus came to the ruler's house, he saw the flute players and the crowd. In those days, when someone died, it was a Jewish custom, or almost in their law, that you had to have a flute player, you had to have a mourner. And so with Jairus being a ruler in the synagogue, he probably had a lot of people and attracted a lot of crowds, and that's what's happening here. Luke and Mark talks about the crowd and how much noise they were making. They don't mention the flute players, but they talk about the crowd. But here we have flute players and the crowd making a commotion, just making a disturbance. Because back then, they buried quickly, and they have professional mourners, people who just wailed and cried. I mean, that's what they did at funerals. That's what they were supposed to do. One, to help, to bring some kind of comfort to the people and bring significance to the individual that passed away. And so, you remember Herod, he wanted people to cry at his funeral too. And he killed people to make that happen. Side note. So anyway, they were making a commotion, okay? And he said, go away, for this girl is not dead but sleeping. Meaning her situation is temporary, is not permanent. She's going to rise up. She looks like she's dead, but in fact, she's really sleeping because she's about to get up and get out of here. And they laughed at him. They mocked Jesus. That's why Jesus said, go away. He knew the negative spirit was there. He knew that they did not have faith. He only wanted people in that room. He had a couple disciples there and the Father that really believed. Okay? If you don't believe, there's no need for you to even be there. So he got them out of there, told them to go away. They laughed at him. They mocked at him. They had never seen anybody being raised from the dead. They didn't know really who Jesus was. And they doubt that he could do what he said. And so they laughed at him and made fun at him because they'd never seen it before. But conjunction, okay? That's going to count. This is going to counter their laughter, okay? So countering their laughter, but when the crowd had been put outside, and rightly so, get them the heck out of there. You know, when you're praying and when you're looking for a healing and you're looking for God's will to be done, get the naysayers out the way. The people that don't believe, get them out the way. He said when they had been put outside, he went in, took her by her hand, okay, and the girl arose. And the little girl, 12-year-old, arose. And a report of this went throughout all the district. The report of this went out all the district. Look at the faith that these two people illustrated. Healed by faith. Can God heal you today? Yes, he can. God can heal you by the doctor. He can heal you by medicine. Or God can miraculously heal you. Jesus is still in the healing business. Okay? And look what he said. All he wants to say, all he wants you to do is have faith. Look, he says here, he turned to her and said, look at the woman. He says, your faith has made you well. And what we want to do is we want to work on our faith. We want to build our faith in God. Build our faith in Jesus. Look what the man said. He says, look, he says, but come, lay your hand on her and she will live. Tremendous amount of faith. Tremendous amount of faith. So what am I trying to say is that when you go through your ups and downs, when you have your life hard, maintain your faith. Maintain your faith. Believe in God, that God is in control. He hasn't forsaken you. He knows what's going on. He's a compassionate God. He's a loving God. He knows your situation. Draw near to him. Look what these people drew near to him. So much they drew near to him. Their situation was so desperate, they drew near to him, forsaking everything. And as they drew near to him, forsaking everything, their faith grew. And that's what you have to do. When you're in that situation, life or death, crisis situation, financial, whatever it is, focus only on God. Allow God to lead you what to do. And you'll have faith. And just trust that your will be done. When my sister passed away about a year ago, I would pray and say, God, heal her, heal her. I really wanted to heal her. And finally, when I saw her getting worse, I finally realized, God, my prayer needs to line up with your prayer for my prayer to be answered. So I said, God, do not heal her. I'm not God, okay, if you don't heal her, Father, keep her from suffering. When I prayed that prayer, I got peace in my soul. And when my sister passed, she had passed from cancer without suffering. She had just a couple of days where she was in pain, but nothing like what people go through that have cancer. Just a couple of days. Up to the day she had no pain. Just hanging in there. And God did not allow her to suffer. To this very day, I know what God can do. I know God answers prayer. And I know he answered my prayer there without a shadow of a doubt. I know he answered my prayer. And because he answered my prayer, I can cope with my sister's loss so much better. In fact, our entire family can deal with it because we know that she did not suffer. And she didn't suffer because that was an act of God. My sister is healed today in glory. And God has answered my prayer. No, he didn't answer it this way, but he answered it actually in a better way. Because my sister's in glory with a healed body, not dealing with cancer anymore. Keep the faith no matter what you're going through. Keep the faith no matter what you're going through. Have faith and pray according to God's will. Watch what he does. Watch the strength that he'll give you. Watch the patience that he'll give you. Watch your faith grow. Watch your trust in him deepen. And you'll be a changed person. These two changed people. Their faith not only healed Jairus' daughter being made alive, not only healed her physically, but it brought them to Christ. The lady with the issue of blood, not only did she get healed physically, but she became a believer in Christ. And that's what God is trying to do. Take a situation that you're in, work you through it, and bring you to him, or make you have a closer relationship. God bless you. I love you so much. Please have a great Sunday and a great Sunday school. I can't wait till we do this next week. I'll see you next week. I love you so much. Love you even more. God bless you.